This episode is brought to you by Liquid IV. When you hydrate with Liquid IV, you're powered by Hydroscience. Hydroscience is Liquid IV's science-backed formula with an optimized ratio of electrolytes, vitamins, and nutrients. Experience great-tasting hydration for mental clarity, physical endurance, and overall well-being. Sip into something that up-levels every moment. Liquid IV. Tear, pour, live more. Visit us at liquidiv.com.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive. Most of you aren't just listening right now, you're driving, cleaning, and even exercising. But what if you could be saving money by switching to Progressive? Drivers who save by switching save nearly $750 on average, and auto customers qualify for an average of 7 discounts. Multitask right now. Quote today at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $744 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2022 and May 2023. Potential savings will vary. Discounts not available in all states and situations.
Doctor, look.
Stand aside, nurse. I'm Dr. Homebrew.
Clear.
What's going on, everybody? It's Dr. Homebrew. Here we are back again. We're talking about homebrew and talking to home brewers. Probably about cleaning and sanitizing, which are the two most important things you can do in homebrewing. You can buy the best equipment, you can buy the best ingredients, the freshest ingredients, but if you have mung in your bunghole, you're going to have a bad time. So don't do it, and stick with 5-Star Chemicals for cleaning and sanitizing. Go to 5starchemicals.com.
If you love to clean things, man, this is like the best hobby.
Yeah.
Right?
If you
5starchemicals.com. If you love to clean.
If you love to clean.
You love to do your dishes. Yeah.
Right, yeah. And if you hate doing it, 5-Star will make it easier. Because you don't have to scrub. You soak stuff in PBW, you don't have to scrub it off. You can hose it off or lightly, whatever. Okay, normally I would say this is like bullshit, but I kind of want to get into the beer. We already have John here. John, welcome back, dude.
Hey, thanks a lot.
What's this beer? It says any IPA, and I think you're punking me. I don't really think it is what it is, right?
No, it is. Your favorite beer style, buddy.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Is this something you've done before, torturing a poor podcast host like myself with any IPA, or is this brand new for you?
I've brewed quite a bit of IPA in the past, but this is the first shot with some different hops. So we'll leave it at that until Brian have a chance to. Is it
your first New England style IPA?
I brewed this once before.
Okay, all right.
So
how is it brewing a beer that's intentionally cloudy when you've made a ton of IPAs that aren't? I mean, assuming that there aren't, and it's not like a knock kind of question. I'm actually really curious how that is mentally. As a home brewer, making that transition to let's make this like mud.
I don't know. It's not mud.
No, I know. And that beer. I was giving you shit for. But
it's just one ingredient that does it.
Okay.
So it's not that hard. You should try it sometime, JP.
No, man. I don't even brew. You know, to be honest with you, I can't brew. I have a hard time brewing light colored beers. I don't know what it is. Like I refuse to fuck with water. I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to do water chemistry. I hated chemistry as a kid. I don't want to deal with it. So I'm like, I brewed a couple pale ales, but they're sort of mealy and blah. Yeah, and I can do a pilsner, okay. But yeah, like my Belgian table beer comes out pretty good ish. But other than that, I wouldn't be able to brew an IPA. There's no way, even if I wanted to. I'd have to learn.
How about a Belgian dark strong IPA?
Oh,
no, thank you.
Here we go.
That sounds gross.
I just made up a new. I'm dropping gold here, you guys.
Yeah.
This is like a brand new style that is going to take the world by storm in 22.
Sure are. Call the leprechaun. All right, Shar, why don't you go ahead and go first, man? You're rip running ready to go.
I'm in fuego right now, so I'm just going to go ahead and keep going. So.
Sure.
John, pretty much, so you're a Vermonter, so anything you brew is an IPA is going to be a New England IPA, kind of by definition, right? Sorry, I see you roll your eyes at that dad joke, so that's not even worthy. That's not even worthy of a response. So, no, I really like this. This is, and we'll get out of the way. It's a different show. We talked about in the last show. You are a strong, self-reliant individual who is not in a homebrew club, but you're a rugged individualist that can make great beer on your own. So, cheers.
Well, I assume they have homebrew clubs there, right? I mean, they got to have some.
There's a local club that I just haven't gotten involved with, but I think it's gone through a few iterations, and COVID kind of put a stop to everything. So,
and it's not a densely populated state to start with, really. So,
no, I mean, there's we live in a populated area, but nothing like the Bay Area, like where you guys are at.
Yeah, dude.
But I think the 3 little kids running around my house probably have a more, bigger deal with not being in a homebrew club.
Yeah, so. for sure.
Yeah.
And I figure probably Vermont state law requires you to like build a covered bridge with your friends before you can start a homebrew club.
Yeah, that's New Hampshire.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah, dickhead.
Oh God, yeah. I sorry. I don't. Are you guys like? Do you guys like hate each other? Like it's one of those things where you're.
No, we're the Twin States.
That's right. They kiss each other when they see each other online.
Kind of.
So I really enjoyed this beer a lot. What was interesting was, so I opened this up, and it didn't really have. It must have been like a really high fill, because I admit I was kind of in a hurry to judge these. Okay, not in a hurry like I did a slapdash job, but it was getting close to the show, and I'm like, all right, I've got to judge these beers. Because it's not going to get done otherwise. And I didn't look at the bottle, and I didn't hear a hiss, but there was still a big head and carbonation, so I assume you just filled it up to the tippy top, and there just wasn't really that, or for whatever reason, I just didn't get a hiss when I opened it up. And I noted that it doesn't have anything to do with your score, but it's just a thing that I had noticed. Aroma, I mean, it's very hop forward and, quote, juicy. As people talk about for any IPA. And I get tropical fruit and also like a little bit of juicy fruit gum type aroma. Not in that kind of, as it warms up, that goes away. But it's not in the sense that sometimes you get that in a Belgian style beer or a beer that's fermented too warm. You'll get like a fermentation juicy fruit character. But this seemed to me like it came from the hops. It didn't seem, because usually if you get juicy fruit from bad fermentation or because you want it and you get it from a yeast strain, there are usually other aromas associated with that kind of clue you into the fact that either it's an off aroma or it's an improper yeast. And I didn't get that. That to me was all from hop selection. No malt aroma, which is okay for any IPA. No alcohol, no off aromas. It's very clean and inviting. Gave it 10 out of 12. So I really love that aroma. Appearance, I mean, I've had commercial any IPAs that didn't have an aroma this nice. But that's half the point of what you're going for, is to focus on the aroma and the flavor of the hops as much as, if not more than, the bitterness. Appearance, 3 out of 3. It's straw colored. It's hold it up to the camera. It's hazy, but it's not gunky hazy. I think we've all hopefully everyone's gotten beyond that. When everyone got into the NEIPA years ago, where they were trying all kinds of weird stuff to try to get that haze that was just nonsense and just bad looking. The head is large and persistent. Again, 3 out of 3. Initially, the flavor is a tropical fruit with malt low and in the background. And the malt is low and stays in the background throughout. But again, that's the point of this style. This is a hop-forward style. Certainly, it needs to have some malt character and some body. But this is not a beer that you're going to pick apart the complexity of the malt bill. This is a background to showcase hops. Bitterness is medium high, which I really like, because I think that when these hazy beers are so focused on flavor and aroma that they neglect bitterness, they can become kind of insipid. And I think the best examples of New England / hazy IPA have a firm bitterness as well as hop flavor and hop aroma. I mean, it doesn't have to be West Coast IPA, double IPA, levels of bitterness. It doesn't have to be, shooting for 100 IBUs, but I think you need a firm bitterness in this style to keep, to give it some structure and keep it just from being, insipid and just not pleasant to drink. So that the bitterness to me was really fantastic. Finish is long and balanced toward hop flavor and bitterness. It's well attenuated, no off flavors. I gave it 16 out of 20. Mouthfeel, 5 out of 5. Medium carbonation, which is why I was guessing you just filled the bottle up way high, because if there was no hiss and a big airspace, that would sort of indicate there wouldn't be any carbonation, and it just wouldn't, you wouldn't have the medium carbonation this beer has. Medium high body. I'm going to guess you used oats. Don't tell us. But that's kind of the modern way of getting that haze, and the oats also give you that more creamy mouthfeel. I did note that it's not creamy, but it's on the creamy side compared to astringency, and that's partly what that, like the oats and other adjuncts that give you the haze, will give you that higher body and more creamy mouthfeel. No warming, no astringency. Again, 5 out of 5. Overall impression, I gave it a 9 for a total of 43. I really like this beer a lot. This is very well made. It's extremely clean. It has a lot of hop flavor, a lot of hop aroma, and it backs it up with that medium-high bitterness. It's kind of getting in the territory that I'm not sure exactly what I might do to improve this, because it's already up to excellent. And I'll be curious what Cooper has to say. We talked about all the beers before the show, except for this one. So I will be definitely curious about his opinion. And if I scored it like 20 points higher than him, or if he went up to like the whole 50 on this one himself. So, Brian?
Well,
get him, Brian.
I'll get you. I'll tell you what's wrong here. No.
It's a 13.
I listened for the hiss, and I actually got a nice little hiss when I opened it up. You might have been hurrying a little too much, because it was a little hiss, and I think I tried to. The label was again right on the top on that, and I peeled it back, and it looked like a decent fill level. So yeah, it's fine. Yeah, again, we've got a lot of these little hair ties around now, so that's good.
Yep.
Yeah, really pleasant nose, nice hops right up front. I get a lot of passion fruit, big tropical notes dominating. It's quite fruity. There's some stone fruit as well. It's very, fruity, estery, okay to style. Backgroundy, kind of basic U.S. style base malt. Below that, nothing earth shattering, and it shouldn't be super noticeable. But it's clean, and the beer overall is bright. There's no diacetyl, acetaldehyde, not a lot of sulfur or anything like that. Appearance wise, it's quite hazy. You can see, it's not like the milkshake quality haze. It's you can see through it to kind of shadowy shapes of things behind it, and you can't really see through it, but it's not so opaque that it looks white or like paper lining the glass. It's the head was fairly persistent, mostly fine bubbles, a whitish head. Appearance wise, it's what you want for a New England IPA. Flavor wise, it's fairly hoppy, quite fruity. Big surprise there, right? And has a good amount of the tropical hop characters that I was getting in the nose there. And again, some stone fruit and a bit of citrus here coming out of the flavor. The bitterness is, to me, I would disagree with Brian. I don't know if something else is being perceived as bitterness to him, but I'm not getting a ton of bitterness in this beer. I would say it's kind of medium low, fairly unobtrusive and out of the way of the everything else that's there. But it's not boring or insipid. It's got enough to balance it. And I think a lot of the impression of like a bitter, like long boiled high alpha hop early in the boil is not here. It's not that 100 IBU beer, anything like that, or even close to it. It's just enough to balance. And a lot of it is sometimes you can get some bitterness from Whirlpool hops. And I don't know, I mean, if it's just how it's measured in IBUs, you can get scientific on it and try to figure out what exactly all that is. But I think it expresses itself differently when you use that big Whirlpool hop, and you get your bitterness just mainly from that, as it does when you do just a boil hop and boil it for a long time. It definitely comes across differently, but you do get some bitterness from that. It's just softer. And I think part of that too is going to be the body of the beer too. So I don't know, but it fits in there with everything else that's there. And it doesn't really poke out too strongly to me. Ferment just nice and clean. I felt the beer was fairly dry, but not overly so. It's not, you don't want it to be sweet or really, playing off the fruit with a big sweetness there, getting crazy. Yeah. It just has a nice, good balance, balance to the hop. That tropical passion fruit lingers in the aftertaste with a little bit of malt. It's not, there's some malt here. It's a beer. It's not lemonade. Mouthfeel wise, it's smooth and soft overall. The body has a medium full impression. No obvious warmth. Somewhat creamy, not annoyingly so. Not milkshakingly so. Medium carbonation. Kind of hitting most of the points there for what you need. Yeah, overall, it's a nice drinking beer. It's a really good version of New England IPA. I would like even more hops. I would like just even more, a little hop brightness just shining through, like maybe, some more, additional kind of tropical notes in there that you get. I know it takes a lot of hops to get to even to this point and, just really blow people away. I mean, that's the point of the beer. Some of them are just like, how did they get that much hop in there? And others, it's like you get a mediocre New England IPA and it's like, yeah, it's just not there. But this one is there. It's to the, that kind of like 4 pounds per barrel, 5 pounds per barrel, kind of like it's got enough hops into it, like to make it go, hey, this is what we got going on here. This is a one trick. No, it's not a one trick pony. I shouldn't say it's got the softness in the body, along with that big hop impression and just like, the haze. It just, sometimes you pour you get a hazy IPA at some of these West Coast breweries and it's settled out of the keg. It's not hazy. So sorry. I was like, well, that's our hazy though. So drink it and it's good. It's like, and then you go to the East Coast and we went to the homebrewers conference there in Rhode Island. And half the time he was like, oh, okay, hazy. Oh, there's an IPA. So you order the IPA and it's hazy too. So usually moderately hazy, but they still call it that's the IPA. It's a little hazy. So it's fun though. I really had a good time going out there and tasting beers at the pubs around Providence and tasting some of the homebrews that some of the locals did there and really getting to experience that. I don't hate hazy IPAs like JP does and some of these other guys. I don't order them often. It's more my wife's go-to, but I'll always taste it. And it's like, oh, that's a good hazy. That's really nice. I could drink a pint of that, but give me my West Coast or whatever. But I just think a little more hops would make it improve. Body wise, it's there. Strength wise, it's nice. You could probably even get away with a little more alcohol. It's not really poking out that way, but you don't want it to be an alcohol bomb either or go to double IPA territory. It's kind of nice where it is. I gave it a 40. We're 3 points off, Brian. We're fine.
All right, good. See, that just goes to show with the quality homebrew judging and homebrew medical care that Doctors Homebrew are giving you, that we can still come up with no mutual consultation with about the same score.
I will say, because I do have thoughts about this beer, because I would imagine out of the three of us, I probably have had more hazy IPAs than you guys. I'm going to bet.
You probably have.
Just because of doing the session. Solely from that reason.
Probably you're right, yeah.
I think it's a very good example of the style. I think it might be a touch too bitter comparatively to the other beers that I've had. The other beers, it depends on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to get that really soft, pillowy roundness and make it smooth all the way through, it's not there. I prefer this to that stuff. I prefer what you're making, because one of the main, problems that I have with hazy IPAs is that they're not IPAs. They're not bitter. There's no bitterness to them. It's just soft. It's like a pale ale that is in a pillowcase. It's just, I don't know what it is, but it's not an IPA, but yours actually tastes like an IPA. There's bitterness to it. There's hop, obviously there's hop flavor, but it's the bitterness that applies. It's not as soft and pillowy, and I appreciate that out of it, but it's not as aggressive as like a normal IPA, if that makes any sense. So you're riding that line. You found that beer to be like in between those two styles, in my opinion, which is very biased. But I think it's a very good example. Yeah, I would have given it a 40 also.
And it is, there is bitterness to it. It's so one thing I wanted to say too is there's almost no hop bite to it. Like you just get some of these beers that they throw so much hops in the late end and the whirlpool and the dry hop, and it just, you drink it and it just like coats your tongue and it just like singes you, and you're just like, oh, like that's burn. Ow.
Yeah.
It's actually like a sensation of pain and just like turns you off. This does not have any of that really. So you got to tread a line. If you push the hops up too much, like I said, more hops, have fun with it. But you could go into dangerous territory there. So this is it strikes a nice balance between having just enough hop and keeping it soft at the same time and not biting.
Agreed.
You know what it reminds me of a little bit is a Treehouse hazy IPA. So my old job, I had a friend that was a coworker, and he was from Connecticut, and he would go back there pretty regularly for family stuff. And when he came back, he'd always bring like a whole bunch of Connecticut beer and like share it with everybody, which was really nice of him. And that's like one of the first hazy beers I ever had was a Treehouse, and it was hazy, and it had the body, and it had the aroma, and it had the flavor. And it was kind of before any IPA was a thing, right? It was still kind of a relatively local. This is probably 6 or 7 years ago at this point. Mm-hmm. But I remember liking it because it still had that bitterness, just like you were saying, JP. It's got that bitterness and that structure.
Agreed. I like it. I don't know.
What was did we get to what the hop was yet?
No.
We need to let him talk about his beer.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
So I actually had a hard time. I've got a 3-vessel Herms system, and I undershot the mash temp. I ended up doughing in at like 140, and my pump broke. So I couldn't actually.
Oh, no.
It's okay. I fixed it. But I couldn't actually temp up for about a half an hour. And so I was just like, all right, been at 140 for 30 minutes. Let's just ramp it up. And so I just ramped it up to 158 by that point. And I was like, it's probably good. We got through all the ranges, and, everything's probably converted. So that probably lent to like a slightly drier, less body beer, I would think, which I'm with JP. I like that. And a little more bitterness too.
Yeah.
So anyway, here we go. It's a 10-gallon batch. It's 41% pale malt, 41%. 41% Maris Otter, 41% Wireman Pils, and then 18% Quaker Oats from the grocery store.
Nice.
Yep.
I had one bittering addition at 60 minutes of Mosaic. And then that was calculated at 15.2 IBUs. And then I did kind of a double whirlpool where I chilled down to 195-ish and then did 1 ounce of Citra, Eldorado, Mosaic, and Idaho 7. And I believe the Citra and Eldorado were the Lupomax, kind of a hot pellet where they take all the vegetative or some of the vegetative matter out, so you get more of the lupulin gland. And then I did the same mixture. I chilled it down again to 180 and did Citra, Eldorado, Idaho 7, Mosaic, but 2 ounces of each.
Wow. I love Idaho 7, and that's maybe why I love this beer so much. That's just such an amazing hop, and it's got such great flavor and aroma. It just really, and it plays well with other hops too, as your beer shows.
I like the Mosaic and Citra, also the Idaho 7. Those are all good choices. The Eldo, good stuff. I was going to say too, like with the dryness and a little bit more bitterness, it is almost like one could argue the West Coast version of a New England IPA, perhaps.
Maybe I'll make it.
I mean, that's why we like it. I don't know.
Right. So on the dry hop, I did. I didn't put it in my notes, but probably day 2 or day 3 of active fermentation, I know I did 4 ounces of those 4 hops again. So a pound of dry hop in 10 gallons plus, whatever those other ounces added up to in the boil. So there was a lot of hops in this.
It's literally a shit ton. That's how
it was a shit ton of hops, and it was very expensive. I pitched I did 3 rehydrated packs of American East Coast ale yeast from Lallemand and a 3-liter starter. So I got that going. Oxygenated for 1 liter a minute for 4 minutes. And then that thing was, unlike the Pilsner from the last show, that thing was ripping at 12 hours. Wow. And then I ended up kegging it by day 9. So I ramped up the temp, started at 66, got it up to 68 by day 4, 70 by day 6. And then kegged it day 9.
Probably a good idea not to wait too long because you want to avoid oxygen in this beer, obviously. So.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that I've made mistakes in the past is leaving the dry hop on the beer for too long, or the beer on the dry hop for too long. And this thing had some hop burn in the beginning when it was first kegged. Holy moly. It was it was difficult. It probably stuck around until probably a month or so after the brew date. But it's like, like Brian kind of alluded to it. More hops, then you get the hop burn, less, it's like this balance of when you drink it, you had as soon as the hop burn is gone with this beer, it was pretty incredible, but it's actually held up pretty well. And then the water, the water is super important, as you guys know, with these beers. I did a shot for sulfates at 114, chlorides at 118, and then because of my my town water, my calcium was at 113. So kind of a 1-to-1 for the sulfates to chloride, and the calcium was just high because of what I had to start with.
It was local water, but adjusted somewhat. You added some chlorides to it, apparently. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I get rid of the chlorine and the chloramines with potassium metabisulfite.
What do you think about that, guys? Good stuff?
I like the recipe. Yeah.
I always, as far as getting rid of chloramines, I was always super paranoid about that. So I would do a carbon filter and then use like half a Camden tablet, quarter of a Camden tablet, something like that, which is the potassium metabisulfite, and never really had a problem with any kind of chlorophenol stuff with my beer. You just got to be careful not to put in like too much Camden tablet stuff, because then you can, if you're feeding your beer to people that have sulfite allergies or sensitivity, you have to be a little careful. Like a little bit is fine, but once you get up to like a whole tablet for like a 10-gallon batch or something, that's way too much.
So I did also add it at kegging, because I'd heard that it scrubs oxygen. So
I was going to ask if you had any tricks for keeping oxygen out. That's interesting.
It's not purple, and it's 2
no.
months, and it's been kegged and then bottled. So,
nice.
I mean, I was pretty anal about the packaging, so
you got to be, man.
Knowing what oxygen can do to these.
Yeah.
What do you feel?
There's no oxidation in this at all that I could tell. There's an excellent job.
Yeah.
You have a counter pressure of some kind, obviously, or
I've got the Blickman beer gun.
The beer gun, yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
It was interesting in the bottle. there was, you kind of move the bottles around, you go like this and you can see the, like the Pilsner would foam up in the bottle and then obviously go back into it. That hazy IPA, you'd roll it around and it was like water in there. There was no head, no end. And so when you,
wow.
Brian Shar, when you said that there was no hiss, I was like, huh. Because I bottled probably 18 of these and sent you guys the best 6 or 5 that I did.
Well, that's what we come to expect, honestly.
Well, I think
I
think that maybe Cooper is right in that maybe I was just trying to get through these and give them all the attention they deserved, and I probably opened it up and was thinking more about, pouring it and judging it than I was about the actual, because I didn't check the bottle for the air, like the air in the neck or how high the fill was. And I think Cooper's right. I probably just somehow was distracted, didn't consider that, and then just assumed I didn't hear it. But then the carbonation was fine.
I just remember looking at the bottle and saying like, oh, it's nice and hazy in there. You can definitely see that through the bottle. No problem there.
Right.
Cool.
So I don't want to spend too much time, but Cooper, what would you do if you wanted to turn this into a West Coast?
What would you do?
The East Coast, because you're like, it's tipping that.
Yeah, so you could make like a juicy IPA out of this. It's going to, with all those oats in there, you'd have a hell of a time clarifying it if you were going to do it from this recipe. So I don't know what it's going to do to the beer if you take out the oats, but, I don't know. You don't need to make a West Coast IPA out of it. Just, do your West Coast IPAs, West Coast style, and, change your water. Don't use the oats and see what it tastes like with the same recipe if you want. I mean, that would be a really interesting side-by-side, same beer with the same hop regimen. I kind of like the softer, as things have aged, and we'll see what happens as guidelines are updated. But I think that IPAs have become less of a bitterness war, battle to get to 100 plus IBUs, and more of just like, hey, you can have a nice soft bitterness along, reasonable, just enough to balance, and you don't have to go crazy with it with a lot of late hops. And those are the kind of IPAs I personally like, with a lot of more modern kind of tropical, even sometimes the diesel fuel or the crazy caddy hops, the marijuana hops and everything in balance. I tend to like those tropical hops myself, the Citra Mosaic and some of those other ones. Just nice. That one of the best hazy IPAs I've had was from Cellar Maker in San Francisco. And they had an all Galaxy. I think it was a double IPA, but I don't even remember what it's called. We went there before a concert. I'd never been there before, but had some of their beer, and it was just like, wow, I got a really good feel for what Galaxy was, because it was just all Galaxy, and there was a metric ton of it in the beer, and it was just so soft and just bright with that, just on the edge of burning, but not harsh. It was just right, and it was like, wow, that's amazing how much hop got into that. And that's Galaxy is a fun one to use when it's fresh. Like sometimes you got to really be concerned about what hops you're using and what harvest year they were and how they've been stored and everything to make a really good beer like this. And again, your bill for this batch of beer is like, okay, well, we're going to eat this month, or okay. Yeah, spend it all on hops, honey. Sorry. That's on the food bank.
All right. Well, if that's it, John, we'll let you split off, dude.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, guys.
All right.
Thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right. We're going to take a fast break, everybody. And we're going to come right back and, do something else cool. So hang tight. It's Dr. Homebrew. We'll be right back.
This episode is brought to you by Liquid IV. When you hydrate with Liquid IV, you're powered by Hydroscience. Hydroscience is Liquid IV's science-backed formula with an optimized ratio of electrolytes, vitamins, and nutrients. Experience great-tasting hydration for mental clarity, physical endurance, and overall well-being. Sip into something that up-levels every moment. Liquid IV. Tear, pour, live more. Visit us at liquidiv.com.
Hello, fellow BNers. This is Sully from the 21st Amendment Brewery located in San Francisco, just 2 blocks from Giants Park. Before Nico and I opened the 21A and before I was a professional brewer, I homebrewed on my small 4-burner apartment stove in a back house in Santa Monica, California, making my extract brews before graduating to the daunting idea of all-grain brewing. Homebrew books and information was hard to come by back then. The internet hadn't been invented yet, along with other things we take for granted today, like electricity and potable water. One thing I wish I had back then when I was learning was a radio show that could teach me the ins and outs of brewing and answer questions that I had about homebrewing, a resource for making great craft beer. The 21st Amendment Brewery is excited to be a proud sponsor of Dr. Homebrew, a great show that teaches you what you need to know about making incredible beer. Good stuff. Listen up, you might learn something. I certainly did. And thanks for your support. Tasty Crack Games.
Dr. Homebrew, please report to the ER for a code blue. Dr. Homebrew to the ER, please. Oh, and your tea time has been moved to 2:30.
All right, thanks for hanging on, everybody. We are on the phone with Matt. Matt, welcome to the show, dude.
Thank you.
Thanks
for called us long distance, all
right.
the way from Michigan.
That's right.
This Bill is going to be crazy on this Zoom call here.
Yeah. Thanks for singing beer. This is a jalapeno smoked porter. I can say I've never had a jalapeno smoked porter before, and I'm excited for it. I like smoked beers. Not, people always people like to shit on a lot of things I like. One of them is pumpkin beers. I like pumpkin beers. I'm going to say it right now. But the other thing is smoked beers. It's a very niche, crowd base, I guess, for smoked beer. So I'm excited about it. Yeah. I've had a couple jalapeno beers in my lifetime. Some are good and some aren't. Most aren't. But I think a smoked porter with a jalapeno, I'm excited for it. I'm ready for this beer. But
yeah, let's.
Have you done this before, Matt?
Yeah, I was curious how long you've been brewing too.
I've been brewing all grains for about a year, and prior to that, I was doing some extract kits and then helping some buddies brew on a larger system. So
okay,
that's a good way to learn.
Yeah, that's cool. All right, and have you done anything like this before? A jalapeno smoked porter before?
Nope. This is the first one.
time.
For this one.
Okay, what made you do the two combinations of a jalapeno and a smoked porter?
I was actually just looking through like Beersmith and some other recipe areas, and this one just kind of popped out. And I like porters. The wife likes porters, and it's like, well, let's try something a little different. I've already done a couple porters, so just spiced up a little bit, I guess.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Great. All right, Shar, let's go. Or Cooper, sorry, excuse me. I didn't mean to.
You just call me Shar.
I didn't mean to compliment you. I apologize. Yeah, go ahead and start us off. I'll pour some and listen to you.
Okay. Well, I appreciate appreciate you sending us beer and sending us something interesting to work with here. So the beer had a good fill level and everything, proper capping, moderately low hiss upon opening. Aroma wise, it's got a pretty firm chocolate and coffee thing right up front. A lot of coffee, actually, it seems like, and there's a green pepper element that comes right through, like you get from some beers with kind of an over extracted use of coffee in a way. Like sometimes you get those weird coffee porters or stouts that have that green pepper flavor to them. I understand this is not a coffee beer, so I'm just the green pepper is, I'm sure, just coming from the pepper that's in the beer instead. So that's interesting to taste a beer like this and taste, oh, there's that green pepper thing, but it's coming from a pepper, not coffee. I think, unless you snuck something in here that we don't know about that wasn't declared, but we'll ask you about your recipe later. Yeah. So, the esters are pretty low. There's no obvious hop. It shouldn't be, depending on what kind of porter, and you can just declare these as just porter, or you can say robust porter, or, whatever kind of porter you want. But it's, it's not too hoppy. No DMS or diacetyl. It smells a little spicy in general, I guess you could say. That peppery quality, the phenolic is coming through. Lightly fruity esters. It has kind of I was hunting for the smoke. It has kind of a vaguely faint ashiness to it, but there's nothing that screams wow, this is a smoked beer. To me, it's more like, there's a roasty element to this beer. Could it be malt, or is it the smoke that was, the smoked malt that was added? So I'm working at getting towards where that level is and what it should be. Appearance wise, it looks really nice. Pours a good sized head of dark tan bubbles at first. Had kind of a speckled looking appearance at first with a finer foam encapsulating some larger bubbles. The head retention is actually fairly good. It's a really dark brown, very rich color. And it seems to have a good clarity. If you look at it at the corners, you can see through it a little bit at the edges there. So, give it full points for appearance. Getting into the flavor, very rich, dark malt character, perhaps a little rich for a porter, and almost bordering, getting towards more of a stout-like territory almost. It really, that dark, roasty malt character kind of dominates the beer throughout. It's quite dry in the finish, so that might be another reason that it's kind of standing out. There's not a lot of sweetness here to play off and kind of meld with those dark malt flavors. Has a fairly firm bitterness as well. And I think some of that is coming from the highly kilned, highly roasted malts, not necessarily from any hops. It does have a very low earthy hop flavor. It's kind of buried in there. I would say the pepperiness comes through only very faintly and pretty mild. It's not biting, just a hint of some pepper. Mainly in the back of the throat. As you drink more of it, it comes through, but it's pretty mellow on that aspect. It's a clean ale. I guess there's balance to the malt. There's definitely not a lot of hop going on here. And it's not really balanced even to the specialty ingredients that you have declared. The aftertaste is has a little kind of burnt, roasty note in the background, kind of an ashy malt character in the aftertaste. And the dryness again kind of lets that rougher kind of won't necessarily say harshness, but that biting kind of roastiness come through a little bit more. The fermentation on the beer seems like it's clean though. It fermented out. It's very nicely attenuated, so it's finished out well, and the fermentation did what it was supposed to. I'm getting phenolics in the beer, but it seems like they're from the peppers and not from any wild fermentation that got loose in there or anything like that. It doesn't have that kind of an impression to it at all. So, clean and just an interesting twist on the porter style and with the specialty ingredients and being kind of low. Mouthfeel wise, I guess you could say it's a bit biting overall with some astringent graininess, a little bit of harshness from the roasted grains probably. There's no real warmth of alcohol, but you do get a touch of warmth from the chilies. It's not a creamy beer. Carbonation is medium. The body is kind of medium there as well, although it seems lighter because it's so dry to me. I think it just has the impression of like it has a little body to it, and then it dries away, and you're left with that like, okay, it's gone, and then take another sip. And it's it sounds like I'm kind of picking on a lot of different aspects of the beer in a way, but overall impression, I guess it's really it's a decent sipper. It's not a hard beer to drink at all. There's just really all the flavors that are going on, especially the kind of bigger roastiness in it is dominating, but it doesn't make it like, oh man, I can't drink this, it's awful. It just makes it a little out of balance for the for a porter style just on its own. And then the pepper is low. You definitely would want to bring that up a fair amount to blend better with the style. If you want to declare, I mean, like I noticed the jalapeno, but it's not like I'd have to drink it for a while and let the afterburn kind of settle in and notice, oh yeah, oh, that's what it is. Cause I get the green pepper and I would think, oh, maybe, did they put coffee in here and do it weird? But it's like, no, it's green jalapeno peppers in there. It's just low and it's really subtle. And like a lot of times I will be a proponent for balance and like, okay, like really use your green pepper subtly and don't go crazy with it or it's going to take over. And in a beer like this, where there's already a lot of flavors, it's going to get harsh and gnarly. But, I think that some of the other flavors are what's making it a little more biting. And I would definitely back off some of the highest Lavabond malts, whatever the darkest malt are in here that are giving it that rich roastiness. It's having difficulty letting those other things shine through and being able to discern any actual smoked malt, like the character that you want in there that you declare it as a smoked beer. I think of a nice smoked porter, the Alaskan smoked porter, is what has that balance where it's not a harsh biting porter, but it's rich and it's rich enough, but the smoke stands up to it in a way that it's like, okay, that comes out fairly evenly. And it is hard to get that balance, but you definitely want to push the smoked malt up and pull back some of the darkest malts if you want to get that balance just a little bit better in this beer. It does seem again like a very cleanly fermented beer with good ingredients that were used and really no obvious flaws or anything like that. It's drinkable and it's fun. It's just, to a beer judge, like this is just coming across less than, to say on the specialty ingredients and more than on the richy roastiness there. So you just have to tread that line and find the right balance. Some of the intense flavors in an already strongly flavored beer like this to get them to stand out and play right. So, I enjoyed the beer. I guess I landed at a 30, which is the very low end of very good. It's good. It's drinkable. It's not bad. It's just, if you want to impress a judge and get a balance on a beer where you're going to enter this in a competition and win a medal with it, you're halfway there. It needs some twisting and balancing and a little bit of work to get there, but you obviously know how to brew a clean beer, and that's half the battle right there. So, thank you for sharing. I enjoyed it. And it's definitely an interesting drinker. It's like, where's the beef? Where's the jalapeno? Where's the smoke? It's not quite there, but thank you for sharing it. And I'll see what Brian has to say about this one too.
There you go. All right, Shar, let's do it.
I haven't heard where's the beef uttered by someone in like a way long time. And I'm not sure how I feel about that. So Matt, are you in a homebrew club?
I am. Yep.
Which one?
It's the Muddy River Mashers.
Excellent. You don't have a funky acronym, but I kind of appreciate that. That's pretty cool. So we've had a lot of rugged individualists the last few shows, so it's nice to hear someone that's in a club. I also like your Christmas decorations. So I largely echo what Brian had to say. I like this beer, but I think my issues with it come from the declared ingredients, not from the beverage. If it were unlabeled and I were drinking it, I would have a different. I would probably score it differently than because of what it was declared. The aroma, overall is kind of low. I get low dark malt, very low smoke, no hop aroma, and no jalapeno aroma. In fairness, jalapeno as an ingredient isn't really going to give you much aroma other than maybe a green pepper. And I do get like maybe a hint of a green pepper, but to me that's more in the flavor than the aroma. No off aromas. I gave it 6 out of 12, primarily due to the fact that the smoked malt character was really not. I would have to talk myself into it almost to get that in the aroma. Appearance 3 out of 3. Color is extremely dark brown. It's very clear as far as I can determine. Head is really large and persistent. I mean, I poured this like an hour ago, and here you can still see there's some head on this. So that's really fantastic. The flavor begins with dark malt. I get a low smoke character, but it's a very low smoke character. But then also get the green pepper character that Brian was talking about. And I'm totally with Brian that balance is key. I mean, you don't want a jalapeno smoked porter or any jalapeno beer that just is ripping your face off with heat. I mean, that's not good. There was a beer that was in clear bottles in like 1998 called was it like Jimmy's Cave Creek chili beer or something? Yeah. Do you remember that shit? And you get it at Safeway or whatever, and it literally had like a chili pepper in each bottle, and the bottles were clear so you could see the chili pepper. And I remember my neighbor had some of these, and he didn't want them. Like, he had one and didn't like it. He knew I liked beer, so he gave me like the rest of his 6-pack. And I had one night, and it was just undrinkable because they shoved the chili pepper into like a clear bottle of bad lager. But yeah, that was that's no one needs to go to that end. I mean, I guess if you're a super chili head and that's what you're into, fine, knock yourself out. But if you're trying to make a drinkable beer and you're trying to make a drinkable beer for competition, balance is important. But having said that, I mean, the only character that I really got of jalapeno, and I opened both bottles just to be sure there wasn't like a bottle variation. The only jalapeno character I really got was that green pepper flavor at kind of a low level in the flavor. And similarly, smoked malt is really tricky, and you don't want to overdo it because you can very easily over smoke a beer. And that gets to be unpleasant and meaty, and you get like this weird summer sausage type of flavors that no matter how much you like summer sausage, nobody wants to drink a summer sausage. So you kind of pick two tricky ingredients to work with here, and they both, I think, require some trial and error as much as anything else to get to the levels that you want. So malt remains prominent in mid-palate. Bitterness is low. Didn't really get any heat. I did get a slight cardboard oxidation, but I got that earlier, and then I don't get it now. So it might just be I might just chalk that up to drinker variation. It's sort of sip to sip, and that might not really be there. It's well attenuated. The finish is medium length and malt oriented. Gave it 9 out of 10 for flavor. Mouthfeel 5 out of 5. Low carbonation, medium body, creamy, no warming. And that's pun not intended. That's the warming from alcohol, not the warming from jalapeno. Overall impression, I gave it a 5 for a total of 28. I really enjoyed the base beer. I thought the base beer was well made. There were no off aromas, maybe a hint of oxidation, although that might just be, like I said, I got a hint of that maybe half an hour ago, and I'm not now. So I'm willing to just assume that I was wrong for that. Like I was saying earlier, it's when you declare ingredients for a specialty beer like this, both smoked malt and jalapeno, smoked malt can be super tricky. You want to be able to taste the smoked malt and smell the smoked malt, but you don't want it to overwhelm everything else in the beer, because that gets to be really unpleasant also. Unless you're drinking like that Schlenkerlaw and you have like 3 of them, because it takes like that first one to get through to kind of get used to the fact that you're drinking that, and then you can kind of appreciate the next 2. But I mean, they've been doing that in Bamberg for 1,000 years, and nobody. I think that trying to duplicate something like that is just kind of a fool's errand. I think something like Brian was saying earlier, balance is really important. So having the smoked character is good, but kind of just like you don't want it to be all the way turn up to 11. You don't want to turn it down to, less than 1 either. So I think next time I would add, maybe up your smoked malt 50%, see what happens. I don't know that I double it, because I do get some smoked character, but I'd maybe 50% it up. And then also with the jalapenos, I'll be curious to hear how you added those, but you might consider like a tincture where you chop one up and put it in a little bit of vodka and then just, pour yourself 12 ounces of that beer and then put in 1 drop and see what you think. The 2 drops, 3 drops. And then when you go to bottle, you just know, okay, well, I know that 6 drops gives me the exact character that I want. And you can maybe go with that approach to maybe more precisely control the jalapeno. Because I would have liked to have. I was kind of excited when I got this beer. I'm like, ooh, this sounds really good. And it is good. I mean, I'm enjoying this, and it's a tasty beer. I was kind of hoping for a little bit of that heat complexity and a little more of the smoked complexity. But thank you for sharing, and I definitely appreciate that. And I'm looking forward to hearing how you did this.
All right.
I would also too agree with the 50% recommendation. You don't like. I was like, well, it's so low. You want to double it? No, you don't want to double it. Like 1.5 is probably a good place to start as just a baseline and see, okay, this is really good or this is not quite there. And then as you bring up the smoke and the jalapeno, they're going to play off each other differently. So you might want to adjust them differently from there. So.
I'm just going to jump in real fast and echo what everybody else has said. I think you need to dial in the porter recipe first, then you can smoke it, and then do the jalapenos. If you're really trying to get competition, if you're just having fun, then you can keep tweaking it and do whatever. But I think the porter definitely needs to have a little more roundness to it, a little more sweetness to it, a little more fullness. And I'm interested to hear the recipe because I think it's going to be. My take is like it might be a little over roasty, and I think that's giving the coffee quality. And then you have the jalapeno, which is giving that green pepper, and then it makes it's very reminiscent of coffee grounds in a beer kind of thing. So, but yeah, overall it's great, and I do get a little bit of the heat, a little bit like prickly on the palate, a little bit. I
get more heat than Brian too. I get a little bit of heat in the mouthfeel,
just a little bit. Well, we have younger palates than he does, Cooper. So.
And my wife is Mexican, so we eat a lot. We eat a little more spicy. So
that's right. All right, Matt, go ahead, please. Give us the rundown, man.
All righty. Well, thanks you guys for the feedback. That's great. I'm gonna try to brew it again, most definitely. The recipe, like I said, I got off of the Beersmith, so I'll just kind of jump into that right away. About 50% of two-row, 21% of Munich, 12% of a black barley, 5% of Crystal 60, 3.5% of smoked malt, 3% of chocolate malt, and then 2% of Crystal 40, 2% of Crystal 80, 2% of acid malt, and then 0.4% of carapils. So quite a bucket list there. And then
I think, Matt, I'm gonna stop you real quick because I think that probably all three of us had the exact same reaction hearing that malt bill.
Yeah,
there's a lot of.
There's 2% a lot of stuff in it, that
you're not getting much out of, and then there's the 12%, the black malt that you're getting a lot out of.
Yeah,
okay.
But it's you gotta start somewhere, and you're getting it.
And like that smoked malt at like 3%, that's good. And I don't know, Cooper, do you think maybe trying 5% next time?
Yeah, possibly. The smoked malt at 3% was pretty low. So, and depending on what kind of smoked malt it is too, you're going to get varying amounts from it. And tasting the malts is going to help tell you what's in there. But anyway, continue, please.
No problem. It was 0.75 ounces of Cascade at 60 minutes, 0.42 ounces, because I was doing just a 2.5 gallon batch. That's why the smaller amounts. So 0.42 ounces of Williamette at 10 minutes. And then 3/4 of an ounce of Tettnang at 5 minutes. And then the jalapenos were 3.3 ounces added in at the 5 minute mark. And then the yeast was the London Ale yeast from Y Yeast Labs at 1028.
So you did a 2.5 gallon batch, but 12 ounces of black malt?
This is 12%.
12%.
Okay. All right.
If it was 12 ounces of black malt, we would not be able. We'd probably still be scraping our tongues right now.
Okay. How did you do the jalapenos? How did you prep those?
Those were just pretty much cutting off the stems, cutting down the center, and that's kind of all they. One of the recipes I found was how Adam.
Okay.
So,
all the seeds went in, everything.
All the seeds went in, everything.
Good. Yeah. Well, yeah. I wonder if if you prepare a bunch of jalapenos, but use all the seeds, but half of the flesh. I wonder if that would give you more spice, because that's really what we're after. We're after some heat, but we're after less vegetal and I think more spice. And I've never done this. I don't know anybody who does, so don't go out and just do it in like a 20-gallon batch. But I wonder if if you cut back on the flesh, but still added the seeds from that jalapeno that you didn't put in. Does that make sense? I wonder if that would give you a little bit more balance.
Would you maybe suggest switching over to a different pepper, like a cayenne pepper? It doesn't have.
No.
I
like jalapeno. I mean, I think the jalapenos. I think what makes the jalapeno beers desirable is that interplay with the flesh and the spiciness, because the flesh does have, or like a darker green pepper thing. I mean, people eat jalapenos; they don't eat cayenne peppers. Pickled cayenne pepper. So I think those flavors are fine. I mean, if you wanted to really get weird, you can go like ancho chilies or whatever, or or Anaheim chilies, the big green ones, and But I think that might take it a little down a more bell pepper flavor. But anyway, that's a side. I think that's like 4 steps down the road. I think we let's work on your porter recipe here for a sec.
And I've had some other chili beers where the part of the way that somebody has mellowed out the chilies when they use a lot of chili in a beer is to blanch them, and that to treat the plant matter that way might do something nice to it. But yeah, I kind of like JP's suggestion of maybe using a little less, because what we're getting is more of the green pepper, like the skin and the meat of the fruit or the pepper, whatever you call it, and less of that nice oily, like rich spiciness that comes from the seeds. So maybe using a little more of the seeds, at least some amount more, is the key here to getting that element right, and not going crazy with it, but just boosting it up a little bit. So I'm getting it in the back of the throat. It's just, and then again, pulling back that darkest roast malt is going to help that come out better too. So if you do both things at once, it might just swing too much the opposite way. You don't want to do that. So, what did the beer start and finish at? It seems like a very dry porter.
Yeah. The original was a 1045 and then finished around like a 1021. So
okay, that's not too dry. 1021.
And I did have it in the fermenter for 12 days. So
I'm just not getting the sweetness Brian, are you? I'm surprised by that. Are you too, Brian?
Sorry, that's kind of surprising to me also. And maybe that has to do with maybe all that black malt
I think
is
so.
Kind of counter, maybe that bitterness and that kind of maybe that keeps all that black malt from being too harsh, right? Because I was surprised how much black malt that is, and maybe that black malt is kind of counterbalancing the relatively low attenuation.
The ashy aspect of that, it gives you the impression of some dryness, maybe.
Yeah, kind of stands in the place of bitterness to balance the sweetness.
Yeah. Matt, where did you get that porter recipe from?
It's from the Beersmith.
Oh, from Beersmith. Okay. I would get into Brewing Classic Styles by Jamil Zainasheff and grab. I'm sure he has a porter recipe in there, and just use a tried and true recipe that people have used. I mean, not that no one's used the Beersmith before, but Jamil is really good at sort of stripping a lot of stuff down and focusing flavors. I would do that first. Or
find a good a clone recipes book with like a Deschutes Black Butte recipe in it or something like that somebody's paid attention to and really gotten kind of close to that that nice robust porter kind of thing. Because it seems like you must like a fairly robust porter with all that dark malt in there.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Brian. I think turning this into a robust porter recipe would then support the smoke, which can then support the jalapeno. Because I mean, a 1041 beer is not. I mean, you got a light-handed smoke in that. That's not really. I don't know.
Yeah, a robust porter is going to probably start a little higher than that.
It's going to start higher than that, and it's going to give you the sweetness that we're missing. And I think the sweetness can help ride the smoke a little bit, and then all of that's going to play with the heat from the jalapenos eventually.
Yeah, this is almost like a mild territory with just a lot of roast. It's like, yes. Okay, it's got all the roast of a porter, but it's mild strength, so it's it's not playing right there somehow. Interesting. But the fermentation was clean, and you did some really nice things with it, and it's definitely not undrinkable. It's a drinkable beer. I think it's a really cool first effort. I mean, because if you think about it, all of the three things that he tried to do, he did. There's some spice in there. There's some heat in there from jalapeno. I wouldn't, maybe you can call it heat. It's more like a spice, feeling, but that's in there. The smoke is in there. And it's a porter. So for all three of those things to kind of hit at the same time, I think is really hard with a beer with two distinct layers of adjuncts, I guess, smoke and jalapeno. So Matt, I think you're on the ball. I think you know what you're doing. It's just minor. Well, I mean, I'm thinking the porter. I would just switch styles and go robust or something like that. If you like that style again. I hope we answered all the questions. I have a question for you though too. I'm interested about the 2.5 gallon batch size. Is that something that you've always done as a home brewer? As just like you'd like to make smaller batches to be able to experiment more, or you just don't want to you don't want to have so much that you have to share it all to get rid of it, and you want to drink it fresh, or what's the impetus there? I wonder.
When I was doing the extract brewing, I was doing the 5 gallon batches, and I was bottling everything, and then I just wasn't getting rid of the bottles. I had leftovers and it's for a while. And so then it's okay. Then I kind of got out of brewing for, 6 months or so. And then kind of got back into it. And I jumped back in doing some 1 gallon batches just for my own personal domain. And then I kind of, I liked them and just kind of moved into the 2.5 gallons. Just it's enough that I can just still share, but I'm not stuck with it for 6 months. I can keep going.
I think I would find it hard to control a recipe with a 1 gallon batch. It's like a few more grains of some.
Those are some kits that I bought out of place out in New York. So those are mainly the kits on the 1 gallon batches. Then once I kind of decided all the work to end up with 6 to 8 beers, I was like, okay, let's just go to the 2.5 gallons and go from there.
Yeah. I've got some of those 2.5 gallon, the 3 gallon kegs, and it's a nice amount because you can pour it and drink it relatively quickly and have it fresh. And, you don't have to, it doesn't have to be a beer that you bring to a festival to share with your friends. You can just, go through it and sip it while it's fresh and be done with it.
Very good. Anything else, Matt? Anything else you want to ask the boys?
Let me see. I did have a couple notes, but I think pretty much one thing when I cold crash it, this is the first time I bought a used fridge, and I had it set at like 66 degrees, so it kind of stayed right around that 63 degrees.
Yeah.
And then I cold crashed it down to 35, and I had some off the blow-off tube, some stuff come back into the beer. The hose is filling back up because the cold condensing. And then some guys from the brew club said just pull the hose out and let it sit, and instead of chancing it, I guess. So I guess what's your guys' recommendations on that?
Cold crashing, get the suction of the...
Exactly. Yep.
How do you guys battle that?
I don't know that would be the thing I would worry most about.
Okay.
But having said that, when... like Jamil talks about this a lot, and I think he's right, that you don't want to crash anything because when you cold crash, like you turn your dial down from say 65 to 35 or whatever, that rapid temperature decrease will cause the yeast a lot of stress and distress. And when that happens to them, they tend to like explode, and then they just all the yeast innards get out, and it's I'm oversimplifying because I'm not a biochemist, but I mean because they're suddenly panicky that they're going to be freezing and dying, like they start to emit flavors and things that are not they're considered off flavors and off aromas. You want to try to decrease gradually. I don't think you have to have a controller where you program it to go a degree an hour or whatever, but just like over the space of a few days, just crank. You're walking by your fermenter, turn it down 2 degrees. Turn it down 3 degrees, whatever. I wouldn't turn it down a lot, but that's kind of always been my like janky homemade way of not crashing yeast. Is just if you just go out to look at your fermenter, 3-4 times a day, and you turn it down, a degree or 2 each time, you'll be down 20 degrees in 3 days. But it's not going to be this precipitous, oh God, we're going down 30 degrees in 3 hours thing that's going to cause the yeast stress and have them emit things you don't want.
You
want to think about like bringing in oxygen too in the cold crash, because you're bringing in air. I've actually filled up balloons with CO2 and just attached them to the top of the airlock, and it sucks in the CO2. I mean, there's probably a way better way to do that. This is just a stupid let's try this, and it kind of the balloon sucked down to nothing, and it probably didn't do anything for my beer, and it probably put balloon powder in the beer and made it worse. I had bad luck with cold crushing before, where I did a beer or a mead actually, and I had the other end of the hose in a fairly full thing of star san, and the star san pulled itself into the beer, into the mead. And it was just like, oh man, just in it, like 3/4 of a gallon, went into the mead. It was like, oh, great. Yeah.
I've had that happen. 100%.
Yeah. But I kind of feel like it's still going to happen when you cool off your beer, no matter what, because of the temperature differential. But I feel like if you only turn it down a little bit at a time, that delta of temperature, which is what causes the delta pressure that causes the gas to go into your fermenter, it's not going to be as strong. And I don't know. I don't have any experimental data to back this up. It's my belief that keeping that delta smaller is what's going to keep you from sucking in a lot of air. Mm-hmm. I could be wrong. But again, I feel like getting back to what we talked about earlier, I think that right now, the more productive thing for you to do is to fine-tune that porter recipe and get that the way you want it. Simplify that recipe. I think your hops sound fine. All that. Simplify your malt bill. Pick a yeast that maybe attenuates a little bit more. And at that point, then it's worth, okay, you can fine-tune the jalapenos. You can fine-tune your cold crashing or what have you. But what do you guys think? Does that sound like the right path for him to go?
Might not be also yeast drainage. Could just be yeast treatment and making sure that you have a proper amount of pretty vigorous yeast going into that brew ready to go. I like if you're doing, it sounds like you're brewing fairly simply. I like the simple home brewing, the Denny and Drew book. They have a lot of good tips, and just the shake starter with you can use a can of proper and, just put your yeast in it and shake it 18 hours before you're going to brew in a growler and get that yeast nice and vigorous and go. You don't have to have the scientific lab with the stir plate and all the fancy stuff and do, 3-liter starters. You can just, get your yeast nice and happy and vigorous and ready to go and put it in there. And especially with a 2.5 gallon batch, if there's good yeast calculators out there that you can use that will also take into account the freshness of your yeast that you're putting in and everything else. And just, try to be careful about making sure you're putting it the right way. You're going to have more problems under pitching than you are slightly over pitching, I think. So And you can also get yeast from there's plenty of good craft breweries around us. A lot of them are, if you buy beer from them and you talk to the brewer about their stuff, they're probably happy to share some yeast too. And, getting yeast.
That's all little tiny details here, man.
Happy amounts of yeast to make your beer take off right and ferment down, to the right territory, even though I thought it was too dry. But anyway, sometimes I'm off my rocker.
Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Keep trying, man, and send us a rebrew if you do it.
I most definitely will. Thanks,
right.
guys.
Thanks, brother.
Sure.
Thanks, man.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back here on Dr. Homebrew.
The leader in affordable, high-quality kegerators is here. Introducing Komos, the kegerator designed with serious beer drinkers in mind. It features an all-stainless steel draft tower, a major upgrade over traditional chrome-plated brass towers, and Komos keeps your new tower cold with their air-cooled tower fan, wrapping your beer lines in frigid coolness. Your beer is poured from innovative forward-sealing faucets that don't leak, so they stay cleaner for longer. Dual gas inlets on the rear of the fridge allow you to run both CO2 and nitrogen gas. Serve your beer with CO2, serve your kegged wine, or even cocktails with nitrogen. The digital temperature display has the largest range available, allowing you to use the Komos kegerator for fermentation if you need to. And now Komos kegerators ship with duo-tight draft fittings for that click-to-connect assembly we've all dreamed of. Buy direct from KomosDraft.com and receive free shipping on your order. That's KOMOS Draft.com.
Now, back to the examination.
All right, thanks for sticking around, everybody. We're here to wrap up the show.
You're going to wrap?
I'm going to wrap up the show.
Okay.
Yeah, that was, man, you know what? I kind of like that beer. The more I drink it during the break there when Matt leaves, it's not bad. It's not a bad beer. It just needs some guidance. It's
got a lot of good flavors in it. It's not, it's a little out of balance, but that's a fine point, I think. And you could definitely improve this and make it an award-winning beer.
Yeah.
With the right hand.
I agree. All right, we're going to split, everybody. Thanks a lot for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Thank you for supporting the Brewing Network. Thank you for listening to all the shows. We have a bunch of sessions that just came out, so check out that. Of course, Brew Strong is still live and kicking. We're still doing a good job over here too. So thank you very much.
We try.
We do try. Until next.
If you want to,
yes, go ahead, Brian.
If you
go
want
ahead.
to send us a beer.
Yes,
Brian at thebrewingnetwork.com.
There you go.
That's all I will say.
There you go. Any fermented thing, traditional African, ale or whatever. Do that. Why don't you show Mark up, dude?
Fuzzy peach beer.
This peach O's. I thought that was really funny. Peach O's. What the fuck is wrong? Oh, peaches. Oh, got it. Okay, got it.
You're still talking about the peach O's.
You got to do it. Peach O's are good.
Somebody send us a peach O beer.
I think someone has. That's why it stuck out. I think we've had a beer with like those peach O's years ago. Anyway,
I don't.
All right, everybody, take care. And until next time, we'll see you later.